Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is that side character, chapter 34, and this one is titled An Invitation. You look alive, you greeted Kenma the next day. So do you, he replied, his PSP safely tucked into his pocket. You walked together for a bit, with you doing most of the talking, as usual. Then you asked where his PSP was, except you called it the PCP. Here, he said, patting his pocket. Oh, are you sure you don't want to play this one? You asked, pointing to your left boob that he had grabbed while you were staying at the place last night. You're never going to let me forget that, are you? He asked with an embarrassed sigh, pulling a really disappointedly strained face. You cackled and grabbed your left boob in hand. Sorry, Kenma, I'm just going to play my game, you teased him, scrunching your fingers around your breast and squeezing it a little. Kenma kept his head down, refusing to look at you. He was mostly embarrassed, but a part of him had wished that he'd been a little more awake and had remembered what it felt like to squeeze your boob. With more light teasing, you and Kenma entered the school grounds and then headed to class, both feeling a little closer to each other. After school, you were ready to head home when Kenma reminded you that he had practice that afternoon. But you can go home if you want, he said. No, I'm good, I'll come, you said with a smile, following him down to the gym. As usual, you held his PSP, and as usual, he stole glances at you. But this time you felt like he wasn't just looking for the PSP, because he was responding to your calls of encouragement, or if you gave him a little wave or something, he would wave back. After the game had finished, Kuro called the teammates together to talk, and you tried to eavesdrop from where you were sitting, but you couldn't quite make out what was being said. It was only when Kenma came over to you that you found out what was being said. Are you free this weekend? He asked softly. Yeah, why? You asked curiously. Because we're going to the theme park, and Kuro said I could bring you if you're available, and if you want to come. Hell yeah, I definitely want to come, you said excitedly, standing up to show your enthusiasm. Kuro, Kenma said as he turned back to the captain. She said yes. Awesome, Kuro said with a lopsided smile on his face. We'll meet here at school, 10 a.m, and then head in from there. Are we using the school bus? One teammate asked. No, public transport. But we'll go together so that no one gets lost. He glanced at you and Kenma, and you suddenly felt embarrassed. Does he know about Kenma and I spending the night together? You thought, quickly avoiding eye contact with him and staring at the wall instead. After Kenma had said his goodbyes to the team, which consisted of him walking out the door with you while they called goodbye, you headed to the front gate of the school and off down the road towards your homes. The question was still burning in the back of your throat, on the cusp of being asked, but you just couldn't quite formulate the question well enough to get it out in a coherent sentence, so your brain just grabbed onto the most important parts of the question and blurted it out instead. Does Kuro know we slept in the same bed and you grabbed my boob? You asked randomly. Huh? No? What? No? I didn't say anything of that to him, Kenma said with a mortified look on his face, ceasing his walking and game playing while the shock of your question took over him. You had to stop too, because it would have been weird if you just kept walking and left him there on his own in the middle of the side of the path. No, I just asked because he was looking at us when he said he didn't want anyone to get lost, you said. Well, I did tell him that we got lost because when I got reception on my phone, I saw that he had sent a message asking where I was and if I was okay, Kenma said. How did he know you'd gone? Did your mum ring him? You asked, starting to slowly walk now that Kenma was walking again. No, he has the keys to my house, Kenma said. Oh, why? Is that because he's your friend? You asked. No, he shook his head. It's because my mum works night shifts and she gave keys to Kuro so that he could keep an eye on me, he said. Oh, hey, my dad works night shifts as well. High five to us, you chuckled, holding your hand up for him to high five. But he looked down at his PSP and didn't see your hand hanging there for a high five. He came over and I wasn't there, so he texted me to see where I was, but I didn't reply. So he waited at the house until my mum came home and then explained to her that I hadn't been home, and then she tried to ring me, but I had no reception. You stared at him in shock, and since you didn't reply, he finally looked at you. What? He asked, when you just stared at him. You just said heaps of words just then, you said happily. Like, so many words. He just looked back down at his PSP as he walked, a small smile crossing his lips. You were just so happy that conversations seemed to flow, and that he spoke a lot, that you both remained happily silent the whole way back to his house, where you said goodbye and then continued on to your own home by yourself. That Sunday you were up early again, throwing clothes around and getting distracted, then finally getting ready and meeting the Nekoma boys' volleyball team at the school. Most of them were there already, keen to get going, and once everyone had arrived, you all headed off to the local train station to go to the theme park. Hey, Kuro, thanks for inviting me, he said to the taller captain as he walked beside him with Kenma on the other side. It's fine, he said. I'm sure Puddinghead would have been sad if I didn't invite you. Kenma scrunched his face up and gave Kuro a side look through his fringe, but Kuro never saw it because he refused to look. And there ends chapter 34. Stay tuned for chapter 35 coming tomorrow.